Okay, great. I think we're ready to go. So good afternoon, everybody. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. My name is John Walsh. As the head of ESB's Smart Energy Services team, I'm delighted to welcome you here today for our discussion and seminar on energy storage, which we've subtitled Use It or Lose It, and I hope that makes more sense at the end of today's workshop. So look, it's a great time to be working in the energy industry. You know, we're going through a transformation of our generation, our supply, and how we use energy in our homes and businesses. And you know, looking at today's or yesterday's announcement from SEAI on energy efficiency and renewable energy, you know, I think we get a great view on, you know, how far we've come and how quickly in terms of energy usage and our demand management, but also where the potential is in our industry to continue with the transformation. We continue to face into three key challenges, though. You know, the first one is how do we quickly accelerate the decarbonisation of our energy systems? How do we ensure security of supply? And how do we deliver affordable, cost-competitive energy to the end user? And in the Smart Energy Services team, we partner with large energy users across the UK and Ireland, but we also collaborate with world-class leading innovators, new technology companies, and some early adopters so that we can develop new innovative solutions for our customers. And we're really excited about energy storage at the moment. And what we're here to do today is share why we're excited about the potential of energy storage, not just to help unlock those three key industry challenges, but also to help business reduce their operational costs and also develop new revenue streams. So today's discussion, and I hope you have a great discussion, is going to be led by four thought leaders in the energy storage industry. We have James Ted from ESB Innovation, who's the head of our Storage Innovation Group. We have Bridget from Siemens, who's the head of storage for UK and Ireland. And we have Ger O'Donoghue, who's the energy manager for Tesco Ireland. And finally, Michael Phelan, who's the managing director of Enda Co, which is a smart energy services business or energy technology business. So the four key speakers are going to share their experiences, their views, and their insights on how energy technology is going to help unlock some of the potential in your businesses. So just before we kick off and I introduce James, I'd like to just maybe go through three housekeeping points. The first is if you could just take a moment to check that your mobile phone is set to silent. Great, thank you. The second is we're not expecting a fire drill, so if the fire alarm does go off today, if you could calmly exit the room through the fire door at the back, and there's one just behind me here, and the exit is down the stairs and out through the front door. And then finally, I'm hoping we can have a great interactive discussion at the end of the seminar today. We've set aside about 20 minutes to have a discussion. So I hope as the panelists are sharing their experiences with you, that you could maybe just relate to how can you apply their solutions and technologies and insights into your own business. But if you could maybe hold those questions until the four speakers have finished. So I'd like to invite James Ted to the podium to give us an overview on energy storage technologies.
Thank you very much, John. I'm James Ted, Head of Energy Storage in ESB Innovation. What my role is really in innovation is to look at how energy storage fits with ESB's different businesses, whether that be generation, whether we can look at energy storage at our power stations, at our renewable stations, and transmission and distribution, whether it can, how or where it can fit into the networks business, and then also in the supply side, the third pillar of ESB's business, and how energy storage can fit into the on the supply end, how that can be controlled to benefit the customer and to benefit the grid and the general Irish system. Today we'll be mostly focused on the business end of the customer side, given where we are at the energy show and a number of larger energy users here. and really looking at how you as energy users can benefit from the storage which is inherent in your processes, or it could be brought into your business through adding extra control or specific storage technology into your business. So, as John said, the sort of the triple point and triple challenge in energy is really around decarbonisation, security, and affordability. Actually, two of them there's no real discussion on. Decarbonisation, in the last 25 years, Ireland has halved its carbon content in its energy, and by 2050, its electricity will be fully decarbonised. Security, it's again not a discussion point. We have to have stable, secure energy supplies. So the only point we can look at is how we can do that at the affordable price, and that's affordable price is really what for the energy customer, for yourselves, is where is the most important one, given that there's really no discussion on the other ones. In terms of that, when we're talking about security, we're talking about what we need in that is security can be described as backup. How can we provide backup for our power in case something happens? To date, how have we provided that level of security, that backup? We've provided it at thermal stations through the energy stores which are inherent at them, the coal yard in Moneypoint, the oil tanks, the oil reserves up in Poolbeg. As we move to a decarbonised world, we lose access to those because the power stations aren't operating. We're working more in generators which go directly into electricity, such as wind, such as solar, and a number of other renewables. We're increasing that side. So where can you, in that system, find storage, and where can you access that storage? And then, actually, the portion of the storage which has been limited in its access to date has been the storage which is inherent within the customer side, such as within some of these technologies here. The customers can be controlling their demand where you're pumping, say, or some other process which can be turned on, turned off on a daily basis and controlled. That's a way to store energy between one period and another. Heating and cooling, again, but through control of of a hot store or a cold store, that can also be a very efficient way to store energy on the customer side. And then there have been great steps forward over the last few years, and the projections for the next few years are phenomenal in terms of batteries, specific power storage, storing electricity directly. To give a bit of explanation about battery storage, it really is an old technology here, and in some ways it hasn't hugely changed. It's two electrodes with electrolyte between them. It was invented with a stack of different metal plates back 200 and a bit years ago. The lead acid battery 150 years ago, that's what's in most people's cars nowadays. But then over the last 25 years, lithium ion has really been the game changer. The first time those came in was turning mobile phones into portable as opposed to in your car mobile phones. And then 5 years ago, the mass production of electric vehicles, we can see, I think I was hearing this morning, there's 17 electric vehicle models being sold in Ireland at the moment. And the number of manufacturers who are moving into that space is driving huge efficiencies, huge improvements in technology to get the cost of the batteries is plummeting in a way that would have been seen over the last few years in solar. And what that's bringing is a new technology option to control load. So what does this mean for the large energy user? Lots of these processes are things which you have inherently, or within your the curtilage of your premises, you could install a battery. By controlling that with smart controls, data controls, which are taking signals from the grid and controlling those on and off with minimum impact on your inherent processes and potentially improving with those data, being able to access different improvements in your efficiency of your processes, this inherent storage can be accessed. In terms of bringing that into the grid, it requires a relationship, of course, and that relationship is the core of this, to be bringing the services which the grid requires and the energy user can provide. So providing far more services back to the grid, therefore working far more in a partnership than would have been done before, where it's been mostly a relationship between the electricity supply to demand. Now it's a relationship which is bilateral in terms of providing services back to the grid from the energy user based upon their inherent storage. We really see this as a huge growth area in the next 5 years in a number of different ways. In Ireland, the market is changing to reward energy customers with this through a scheme called, to reward flexibility, I should say, which could be accessed by electricity customers through a scheme called DS3, run by Airgrid, which is paying for these flexibility services. That's happened in the UK. Those products are being coming out in the UK, different three-letter acronym, but very similar products where being able to respond respond quickly and with a certain amount of changing your load based on a request is giving energy users 5 to 10% reductions in their electricity cost with a little or no impact on their core usage. So that's my high-level summary of what energy storage is and how it's very relevant to the energy customers, the engaged energy customers of today and the engaged energy customers of tomorrow. As John said, ESB Smart Energy Services, we see ourselves working with yourselves to enable that revenues to be taken to be achieved in the market, and so we can both profit from that. That concludes my presentation, and now I think we'll hear from each of the speakers briefly. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, James. Just before I introduce Michael Phelan, we've got plenty of seats at the front. It's great to see so many people have arrived in. So it looks quite crowded at the back. So if there's probably 10 or 15 seats up here if people would like to come up. Promise I won't. No? Okay. So I'd like to welcome Michael Phelan to give an overview of Enda Co. We think Enda Co is a very innovative, interesting company. They work in partnership with large energy users across the UK and Ireland to help unlock the embedded energy storage in large energy users' industrial processes. And they do so in a way that not only helps them save their operational costs, but also unlock some new revenue streams. So I'd like to welcome Michael to the podium.
Thanks, John. I suppose my purpose here today is to give you an idea of Enda Co. Most of you probably don't know who we are or what we do, and an overview of some of the things the colleague there talked about in relation to, I suppose, living with smart grid and kind of moving that along, especially in the UK. And I think there's an excellent opportunity over the next few years to move it along in Ireland. So Enda Co has been involved, I suppose, in smart grid for the last 3 to 4 years in a reasonably substantial way. We probably have about 70 megawatts of storage load in various forms that has been manipulated, half roughly here in Ireland, half in the UK. The half in the UK is already implementing the types of schemes that my colleague there described. So we implement over there a lot of different things, I suppose, to make the grid quite smart. So we gather loads of different types. They tend to be refrigeration loads, compressor loads, different types of loads that can benefit from being manipulated in time. We also then gather embedded generation, and I suppose in time we will also look at adding batteries to implement, I suppose, the kind of frequency curves that the National Grid in the UK today are looking for, and I suppose that the Irish Grid in probably from next October will be looking for under DS3. We also then would optimize a site from the point of view of smart tariffing. So we would take into account, say in UK, they have things like DUOS, distribution use of system charges, which vary all the time. We also take into account over there triad critical peaks. In Ireland, then we would look at day ahead and intraday tariffing in the short term. And I suppose more and more so in the UK and eventually here as well for imbalance, you will probably start seeing imbalance management systems coming in. So over the last few years, we've developed a platform that's capable of delivering all of those in the various industry segments. We have developed some of the industry segments fairly substantially, so we would have most of the cold stores here in Ireland, distribution centres, and indeed about 60 or 70% of them in the UK. We also would have a lot of food plant to the extent that I think we have something like 80 industrial refrigeration plants under our control. So this is kind of a real living system. We would also have a lot of mills, milling equipment under our control of all sorts, everything from feed and flour mills to I suppose cement crushers and various things in between being optimized. We have a lot of, I suppose, induction furnaces and various things in the UK involved in the scheme. So there's many assets that can do this type of thing and do it very intelligently. There's other industries, obviously, in the UK more so than here we would be looking at, but there's still great potential here in the water industry. Here as well, we would have a lot of commercial buildings where we would be doing some of these things, and certainly has a lot of possibility for being innovative in that area over the next period of time. I suppose our concept is we probably 35 megawatts of load doing this in the UK at the moment and growing at a fairly quick rate. I think Ireland is in an interesting position at the moment in that with DS3 coming in, we're actually bringing in a lot of services at the same time. And we have an opportunity, I suppose, to look at load and embedded generation, as well as a traditional large generation, and figuring out what's the best mix for the country here to make, I suppose, ourselves as a showcase of what could be achieved from the point of view of, I suppose, grid balancing. Within grid balancing, you're probably focused on a few critical things. You're probably looking at critical peaks, which are probably not that important in Ireland, but are very important in the UK, as you probably know, but will become important in Ireland again. You're also looking at managing the renewable. So there's a number of very interesting schemes that you can implement to manage renewable. There's, if you like, short-term schemes where you can back off generators, or you can manipulate and turn on load and various things to allow, if you like, wind on the grid and stop wind curtailment. You can also then have various ways of, if you like, manipulating growth to solve your inertial problem. So in UK, again, they would be looking at how they solve their inertial problem if they were to lose something like the French interconnector, which is 2 gigawatts, or to lose some very large load. So there's some very interesting things we could do here in Ireland in that. And then I suppose we can also look at the whole area of local distribution grid and management around voltage and various other things. So if we've constraints in various areas, there's quite a bit of work we can do in that area. And because we're bringing in DS3, we're bringing in all these services basically now within 6 months. So we will actually overtake. So while the UK has managed to bring in some of these services over the last while, we're bringing in more services, as it turns out. So we can probably truly in the next few years be the leading market for smart grid. Last few years we probably really weren't, but we could very quickly catch up and get ahead of other countries. Obviously in a structured way. We want to make sure the lights stay on and the grid keeps going in a very, very good way. But there's a real opportunity at the moment to lead this particular market, certainly in this part of the world. So from our point of view, I suppose to help facilitate that, I suppose we've already put about 40 man years of development into our platform. So our platform is capable of all the bits. So the mistake we saw others making, particularly in the UK, was they tended to focus on one thing. So they were all able to do one thing, but then that one thing would kind of not be so valuable to the grid anymore, and the grid wanted something else. So we developed a platform to allow us move to deliver all the pieces that people want, or at least a large number of them are the pieces that are currently relevant, and then be able to keep that going, I suppose, as the grid evolves, and then pick up, as batteries become more cost effective, the possibility of adding those to customer sites. And certainly the journey to date has been interesting, in particular in the last year or two. And as far as we can see, there's very large uptake of this type of solution in the UK. I think there will be in the next few months here in Ireland as DS3 comes in. So hopefully that gives you an overview at least of Enda Co and what we're looking at.
So thanks very much, Michael. I guess I don't need to introduce Siemens, who really are a global innovator in energy technologies, but I certainly will introduce Bridget, who is the head of storage technology in UK and Ireland, and she has a specialty in battery technologies as well, so I hope she can share some of her views and insights on both battery and general storage technologies. Yeah, well, whichever.
Hello, good afternoon. So Siemens overall has many different storage technologies within the product portfolio. So everything ranging from huge gigawatt scale storage in compressed air, energy storage technology. This is a recent acquisition that happened with Dresser-Rand. And then for transmission services, we have something called an SVC Plus, which is, this is in the kind of 50 megawatt range or 50 MVAR range. So this can provide very fast active power support to transmission networks if needed. It's basically a reactive power compensation with some supercapacitors added to it. We have a battery storage solution. We don't manufacture the batteries ourselves. We consider the battery to be like the fuel, and with all the different characteristics of batteries now, we see that different batteries fit different applications. So it's better that we keep control of the converter technology and also the control and everything that goes around the batteries and the interaction with the grid, which is what our key business is, our day-to-day business. So this is a battery storage technology. And then there has been there was a startup developed by Siemens for residential storage, but I'm not sure that this is going to be a key focus going forward. Now, in terms of projects, the complexity ranges. So we've seen everything from just a simple, what we call arbitrage or time shifting. So you take some solar power, it's not available when the grid needs it. So we store it in some batteries for a little while and then we give it back to the grid. So this is probably the most simple solution, but it's actually not very easy to make a business case for this because not many countries in the world, I think we saw one in the Philippines and maybe the odd case in the in the US where we could actually there was a good enough price difference between off-peak and peak power to be able to invest in energy storage. The most complex we're seeing is probably for island networks. So a lot of island networks now, physical islands, microgrids, industrial sites, have lots of different complexity in terms of various generation resources, especially as people start to try and move away from if they're only supplied by diesel or if they want to use less grid power and they want to be greener, so they want to integrate solar. So managing all of these supply assets can be quite tricky. So this has been how energy storage has enabled these kind of sites to utilize more resources more efficiently. And obviously this comes with quite a nice sophisticated control system as well, which runs algorithms to make decisions to decide which generation to use when and how to optimize the load and the generation balance. One of the nicest projects, or the most technically complex projects we've seen was to provide a black start for a gas turbine in a steel plant. So in this instance, we had to, the existing situation was that there was a diesel generator that was providing the black start to the gas turbine in the event that the grid power should go down. And there was a critical time in which this changeover had to happen. And there was a slight risk that the diesel generator might not start or it might take too long to start. So by using energy storage, they were able to almost see that it would happen much faster, therefore giving them a little bit more time and therefore reducing the risk. And this concept of risk, or this calculation of the value of risk, meant that this investment in the energy storage made a positive business case within 1 year. And the reason it was so technically complex was because the energy storage had to have two sets of power conversion settings, one because it needed massive reactive power, it was a 40 megawatt gas turbine, and the other one was the active power to get the generator started. So this is we're most proud of this project because it was the most technically complex complex. So like I said, the islands, they're complex in the control system. We've seen quite a few, probably all the projects that we've done, there's been it's about a 50-50 split between grid applications and between industrial applications. So lots of industries now are trying to, utilize roof space to put up PV, or at least try and reduce some of their carbon footprint. Siemens globally has made some commitments to be carbon neutral. I don't know the date, but this is one of for the Vision 2030, I think we should be carbon neutral by then. So one of the things we now have to look at is being greener. How do we use more PV? How do we rely less on diesel generation? And if we want to use PV, how do we do it? Now, I must say, we've been a little bit slow in the market. So the US market took off a long time ago, and we missed it completely. So it's been and gone pretty much, I think, for the big scale storage anyway. But what we've seen in the past 12 months in the UK and Ireland is this kind of acceleration. And almost a tsunami is now flowing through Europe. So we bid in December alone in Germany 150 megawatts just for energy storage projects in Germany. So in Germany, there's the grid services that's also required, but there's also a nice industrial system called Netzengeld, which is it's all based on demand charges. So you can we saw some customers where they could be in the upper limit or beyond one level or one slab for demand charges for a fraction of time, minutes in 1 year, and this would cost them 1 million euros. So it's quite easy to make a business case, but it takes a lot of analysis beforehand to see, how and when and why they go out of their bandwidth for this short amount of time. Because if you get it wrong, then that means that next year you're going to have to pay this extra million for the slab charges for demand. So there's also been a huge, I think it was already mentioned, so the balancing services markets, which we've seen accelerate again in the UK, and it seems the same is coming to Ireland now, where we've seen, in the past it was generally gas-fired power plants that would provide these balancing services, but now we're seeing more like demand-side services, these aggregator models that are evolving. And in the recent UK project, the National Grid EFR, it's a 200 megawatt call, 70% of the bidders were offering battery storage. So it really just shows how the market's changing. And I just tell you now, past my desk was 720 megawatts already for 200 megawatts. So there's a lot of enthusiasm out there in the market as well. And I'm just one small fish in this big pond, So if I've seen 720 megawatts, I have no idea how much other companies have seen as well. Now, with regard to the technology is changing phenomenally fast, and the prices are coming down at a similar rate. I'll tell you now, for a battery, which probably has got the same power to energy ratio, I've got a 40% price reduction now compared to last year. And there's all kinds of contractual innovation that's happening in the marketplace as well to try and accelerate the investments in this market. So if I want to install a project in 2017, I can hedge my price for the battery technology, for example. So if I've got a huge project, say it's 20 megawatts, and probably 60% of that cost would be the batteries, I can actually hedge more than 10 million euros of that project and actually pay a forward price in 2017. So there's all kinds of really nice contractual innovation that's starting to happen in the market to try and accelerate this. We're also seeing a bit more of an appetite for risk. So we're a German engineering conservative company. Lots of people, utilities are generally very conservative and risk adverse. But thanks to all these new kids on the block that have got a huge appetite for risk, we're starting to see lots more innovation in the terms of how we design projects as well. So why design a project for 10 years if everything's going to change, and everything changes every year? For example, I was talking earlier, if all these steel mills, if this steel industry shuts down in the UK now, it takes 1% of the demand off the system. So that changes a whole network anyway. So we're starting to see the new kids on the block that are saying, okay, we don't design our system for 10 years, we'll design it for 5 years and see what happens, and we'll kill the batteries in those 5 years, or try to anyway, and then we'll just replace them. So these whole ideas of, making things and building them to last forever is really changing. So I'm just, in terms of energy storage, I think there's a real opportunity for us to be innovative. There's lots of different contractual and financial options out there for us as well. And there's many, many, many technical solutions. So it's not a case of one tool fits everything, because we can work and we can look at different models and we can combine revenue streams. And the beauty of the energy storage is that it's flexible, and it doesn't have to just do one thing. It can do many things with the same asset. So that's all from me. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much, Bridget. Just to introduce you to Gerard O'Donoghue. Gerard is the energy manager for Tesco Ireland. He's responsible for not only managing Tesco's energy costs across their estate of 150 stores, but he also is managing their carbon footprint to deliver their 50% reduction challenge by 2020. So Gerard is very much a practitioner. He's been designing and delivering energy storage projects for a number of years. So he's going to share his experiences of living it from an end customer perspective.
Good afternoon. Very glad to be able to present to you here this afternoon and share the experiences from a customer side. I'll keep it to 3 or 4 minutes, and then if you've got questions afterwards, then we can go through it. Suppose we've also been looking at storage and optimizing from a thermal stroke mechanical point of perspective, and not just from the electrical perspective. I think it's easier to envisage the thermal storage than it is electrical, and than it is for, say, a mechanical person to move over to electrical. I'm not endorsing the myth that electrical engineers are more intelligent than mechanical engineers by any means. So, but for example, we'll kick off on one of the projects we're looking at the moment is down in Tralee Manor. We're putting in a biomass boiler stroke LPG system. And just to give you an example of how we're not oversizing boilers, but we're actually using buffer storage to maximize the return. So we're putting in a 240 kilowatt biomass boiler. The load when we start up on a standard winter morning is around 400 kilowatts. So we have a gap of 160 kilowatts that we'd prefer not to be utilizing LPG because we're trying to reduce our carbon footprint. Wood chip is cheaper. It's very good for the local economy down there. Tralee is a wood chip biomass hub. So it's a very good fit from a number of perspectives. But that 160 kilowatts, well, how do we get the biomass boiler to cover that? So really we use buffer storage, water storage, mild steel tanks. So if you can envisage it, it's just like having a battery there. We're putting in a 5,000 litre tank. We're making sure we've got a good delta T on the on the load side. So we can store between 200 and 250 kilowatts of power in that tank. And if we could, we'd actually put in more buffer storage. We'd go 10,000 litres or whatever, but we're actually confined with footprints and etc. and meeting planning derogations. So that gives you just an idea from the mechanical stroke thermal perspective. Also in 2007, Tesco built Tramore, and there's a CHP unit down there. And we've installed it in conjunction with an absorption chiller so that we can actually utilize the CHP during the summertime as well. Now, we were probably a little bit ahead of our time because it turned out that the CHP unit we couldn't service it very well because the distributor here in Ireland. But now that's not an issue anymore because there's an agent now for that absorption chiller here. So we can actually, it needs some work on it, but we can actually utilize it again. So it's just our base load in a typical superstore between refrigeration and lighting, say in autumn or in winter, would be around 200 kilowatts. And that goes up significantly in the summertime because of the ambient temperature increasing, our refrigeration load increases. So if we can utilize the CHP and actually use it to produce cool and also get the benefit of the electricity produced locally, it's a big advantage. Other ones where we've actually tried to use natural embodied the energy within the store, and also natural energy is in Cabra. It's a zero carbon store. And we've had mixed results just on the natural ventilation there and actually getting it to work in transferring it from a working theoretically into a practical working successfully. But I suppose with Tesco, we could sit back and wait for other people to do it, or we can dip our toes in the water. And even if we don't get something working correctly, it doesn't mean that it won't work in the future. And also, there's good learning in that process. So it's important. Also, at the moment, there's a trial now. We're just kicking off on battery storage in Mullingar. That's utilising then the difference between, say, the nighttime and daytime rates, so we can use it during the day. And in Britain, a couple of years ago, there was a trial used where we had we're using our controls, and we overcooled in at night time where we normally have a set point of minus 21 in our cold rooms. We increased that at night time to minus 24. And then during the day, then we didn't use as much electricity at the higher rate. And that was working quite well. Now, a number of the engineers then, Tesco restructured, so the team that was involved in that, a lot of them moved on. But it's something that the results were looking quite good, and we'd like to kick that off again. So the last one I just referred to then is DSU, the demand side. We've got 13 CHPs across the estate, and there's with the aggregation, we think there's a good opportunity there, and that's something that that's in play at the moment. So to give an overall summary then of what Tesco's energy, we spend approximately 26 million euro per annum in the 26 counties, Republic of Ireland. 20 of that is electrical, and then the other 5 to 6 million is made up on the thermal side with natural gas, LPG, wood chip, and biodiesel, because Cabra is a biodiesel store, and that's what contributes to us being zero carbon. So I'll take any questions afterwards then, but that just gives you a brief overview of the Tesco from a customer perspective. Thank you very much.